Hey man, you watching Cold Red with the one and only big homie. My big homie, KD. It's up there and it's stuck there. Boom!
Ricardo or more. Drink like a boss.
Hey, what up? Big Cold Red, where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm your host, the Playmaker, and we out in OKC with it. And we got a very special guest in the building, none other than CUTTA. What up, CUTTA?
What's going on, man? How you doing, brother? Good
Hey,
day,
man.
good day.
Everything is good. Everything is good, man.
That's right, that's
How
right.
you been doing besides all the success you've been having?
Man, I'm blessed, man. You know, I'm in good health. And, I mean, what more can you ask for, man?
No doubt, no doubt. I got some very in-depth questions I'd like to ask you. You ready?
Let's run it.
Let's get right to it. So, CUTTA, for the people that don't know you, tell them where you from.
Man, I'm from Oklahoma City, north side of Oklahoma City, North Highlands to be exact. So, uh, yeah, man, I'm from the 405. I rep it, you know, it's in my blood, you know, and I stand on it.
So, CUTTA, there was a time before music. Let's go back then. What
Okay.
was life like for you growing up in OKC?
Honestly, it wasn't no. I mean, for me, it's always been music. You know, I mean, growing up, coming up in the north side of Oklahoma City, you know, it was only thing we did. You know, we played sports, and I did music. Uh, you know, grew up in the church, so that's kind of where the music come from. You know, I was blessed. I was blessed to have both my mother and my father in my life. But you know, we all come at the same house. I'm the youngest of three sisters and one brother. So, uh, you know, I had a lot of examples and people to look up to, to keep me on the right path growing up. Uh, but of course, you know, just like any young kid, any young teenager, you know, you sometimes you got to go through it and learn on your own and rebel and, you know, take your path, you know, walk your path the way you see fit.
No doubt. So, was trouble easy to find in OKC?
Trouble's easy to find anywhere.
Well, you know, when most people think about OKC, they don't. They think about the southwestern region, and
Hmm.
they think it's a little bit country. They think it's a little bit country, right? So, but when you come here, it's a whole lot of flavor here.
Just to be 100 about it, yeah, Oklahoma's country, but these country boys, you know, they about their business.
No
And
doubt.
it ain't just it ain't the country you think about. I mean, we got a little bit of everything here. So, rather it's hustlers, street dudes, D boys, gang banging, we got a mix of everything. Ain't nothing out here sweet. Now, we show love to everybody. Southern hospitality is great. We want people to feel good when they come here, but don't get it twisted. This ain't the place you want to just be playing around. Uh, but at the end of the day, I don't really. I try to surround myself around all the positive things, you know, and I'm trying to build on the positive side of things to where Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in general, gets its respect as far as our culture. Like you said, we got a lot of flavor here. It's a boiling pot. It's called the Heartland for a reason. You know what I'm saying? That ain't just because of the native roots and it being in the middle of the map. No, it's the Heartland because a lot of things that goes on, let's just say, as far as culture, originated in Oklahoma or has roots back to Oklahoma.
Some people consider it to be southwestern. Some people consider it to be Midwest. What do you consider it to be?
I would say It's a little bit of both. I really lean towards the South because we right here net with like I would say the South because we right above Texas, uh, and it's the Southwest because I think we so close to Texas. Texas ain't nothing but 3 hours down the road. So we influenced by the South Sound. We influenced by the UGK, the Houston Sound. But we also are influenced by the Cali Sound, the West Coast Sound, and so I would say Southwest. I mean that's pretty accurate. Midwest. I mean this. I think if you're going towards Tulsa, it starts to give you more of a Midwest. Uh, Chi-town, St. Louis type of vibe going up to the Northeast, and I think it all complements each other at the end of the day.
I think so too. You know, from the many times that I visit, I'm from the Midwest,
Yeah.
and I get a little bit of it all.
Hmm.
Like, my first impression was, OKC. I saw horses. I saw a whole lot of land.
Yeah.
The trail rides. But then I hit MLK.
There you go. Hmm.
It changed everything, and everything that you talked about, I saw it. So growing up in OKC, was it sports? Any sports for you?
So I played football, baseball, basketball, a little bit of soccer. Uh, I did a little bit of hockey. So, that was just something, a kid growing up in the neighborhood, it was nothing but gangs, I was in blood territory. That's where I grew up in. Uh, so, but I think at the time I was growing up, the OGs, they was really trying to make the youth, they was pushing the sports on the youth and trying to keep them in a positive light. So, um, and that's why I say, in where I grew up, all my family lived in the neighborhood. So I got on one block, I got my cousins, they on one side of the block and we on the other side of the block. So I was surrounded by family, and we all, our parents, everybody old school, when you say it takes a village, you couldn't do nothing in the neighborhood without my auntie knowing about it, my mother, my father knowing about it, my big cousin. So it was one of those, I was always around my family.
Oh, okay.
You know what
Okay.
I'm saying?
You grew up in the church,
Yeah.
played sports. Then you got involved in music. Well, you was always involved in music, but you became very influential in the culture.
Right.
How did that all start? Like from the beginning?
So I would say growing up in church, you know, mom, she said, you going to church, you're not gonna be out here running the streets. So I was in church maybe 3, 4 times a week, and my mother she played the piano, and in church she was actually part of one of the first touring black gospel groups out of Oklahoma, uh, called the Gospel Truth, and which then birthed the Truthettes, and because a lot of those were the Truthettes were like the nieces and the daughters of the Gospel Truth. So I remember at probably around 4 or 5 years old, touring with my mom, doing the Chitlin Circuit tour and the gospel tour. So we was playing in churches, we was playing at praise and worship functions and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I started, and then I took, I started out playing the drums, and that just led on just being active and just wanting just to be around. I can't really explain how it happened. I just knew. I now when I look back on it, it was like, okay, this was what I was always supposed to be doing. Sometimes, when your mama says you doing something, that's what you got to do. So I tried to find something that would. I didn't want to be bored. A lot of times I got to the point to where I was sitting in church, I'm bored, you know, just like any other kid would be. And you got to do something, you got to entertain yourself. So I said, I'm about to go play these drums. So that's kind of where it all started for me. Then I would say middle school, high school, now I'm listening to more music. I think I want to be a rapper. Uh, I'm going, you know, I'm starting to go into different functions. My brother, I'm listening to my brother's CD collection. You know, we banging UGK, 8 Ball, MJG, uh, Ghetto Boys, you know, all West Coast music, you know, the Chronic, Snoop, all of that. So now I'm starting to engulf myself in the culture of hip hop. Uh, and then I would say, then we start taking it serious. Then my other cousin, he ended up moving from LA out here, and he started a record company called Well Connected Records. Shout out to John. That's my cousin. Much love to you, brother. And so he started a company called Well Connected Records, and it was me and my other cousin Kilo, and we was called the Midwest Mobsters.
Midwest Mobsters, huh?
Midwest Mobsters.
So we can agree on that.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's what we was going by at that time. Just kind of the roots and just paying your dues at that time. Like getting out, selling CDs out the trunk, you know, block to block, you know, on 23rd Sunday Strip, Edwards Park, you know, all the club let outs. You know, that's really kind of how you learn how to network. That's your people skills. That's how you know, how you getting to know people. That's how people, that's hand to hand combat. That's, you know, I think that's, honestly, I think that's what a lot, that's what's missing today is people don't do enough street team work. They don't, you know, they don't really talk to people that everybody's online. So that's where you learn to hustle at.
Okay. So where did the shift come in? Where did CUTTA?
I would say going through all of that, then things happen to where, you know, life just happened to people. And I'm not, you know, some things I can't even really speak on. You know, they got to go sit down for a few years and people start growing up and they start going their different ways. Then I remember going into a studio, having to start booking my own studio time. And by this point, start doing my own production in my room. So now I'm booking my own studio time, and then my brother was working with a promoter. I was on the street team. The promoter, Devin McCurry, she came to my house, and she heard some music playing. She came into my room. She was like, "Are you doing all that on your little setup right there?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Pack all that up. We going to the studio." So I'm looking at my big brother. He's like, "Man, pack it up. Like, this is real. Like, pack it up. We're going to take you to the studio." So pack it up. We jump in the car. The first stop we make is the airport, and we end up picking up Larry Blackman from Cameo. And we go over to the studio, and that's when I meet Key-Tech. And I press play. I hooked up my stuff. I press play, and everybody kind of look at me and was like, who the young fella right here? So at that point, it was like, okay, cool. Nothing really happened of it, but I believe that's kind of where it all kicked in for me. I remember not too long after that, I ended up booking a studio session at that studio. And then the engineer, Key-Tech, he started showing me different production techniques and skills on how to sequence my beats. And I think from there it was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I don't need, you know, I'm not tripping about being no artist. I need to be behind these boards, turning these knobs, designing sounds, you know, and just doing what I've always loved to do, from playing the drum, just making music. So that's where the shift happened for me. I think I believe I was maybe 15.
15 years old?
14, 15 years old.
Man, you got your start early.
Yeah.
You went on to produce for some major figures in the game. You did a lot of high-end production. You want to talk about that?
I've worked with more people than I can name or remember at this point. I would say my first placement was at 16 for Candyman. I don't know, Candyman's an old school artist. He ran around with Tone Lōc and all them back in the day. So, but that was like my first placement at 16. They came to my house, and I did them some beats right in my room and doing co-production with Kanye and doing production for Boosie, Ray J, um, Jim Jones, MC Lyte, Color Me Bad, doing some co-production for on a Jeezy project, T-Rail, Gorilla Zoe, Music Soul Child. I mean, then we start talking about how many people have I engineered for, how many people's projects who I've mixed. That list goes on and on and on. So there's so many people I can't even remember or name half the people I didn't work with.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of, I stayed true to it, and I honed my craft, and I kept good relationships.
No doubt. No doubt. Scene in Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about it?
What I think about the same? I think there's tremendous talent in Oklahoma City, and it's growing. We've always had talent. I think it's undeveloped, and like I tell anybody, it's up to us from Oklahoma to create the infrastructure and us to put the light on it. Nobody else gonna put the light on it. We gotta show people. We gotta put the light on it ourselves. I just finished a project that actually a spoken word project by a guy named Sekou Andrews. He's based out of LA. It's not like any other spoken word project though. It's high level production from hip hop, Afrobeat, orchestral, movie soundscape, and like soundtrack music. So it's high level production in that project. I just finished that, and I think that's gonna be some good things to happen with that project. I'm also working with Gorilla Zoe. I've been instrumental in crafting his new sound and his rebranding and new development. I'm also working with several different artists, especially out of OKC. I would say Triple MZ, super dope songwriter and vocalist, R&B singer. So he's dope. That's another young girl out of Denton, Texas, by the name of Cecia Dene. Super dope songwriter. It's another artist by the name of Cage. Super dope songwriter. He does a little bit of everything. He blends genres all over the board. So I got a solid creative team around me right now. And there's more people that I want to work with, but the people I'm working with now, I think, is purpose driven because these are projects I want to work on. These are projects that I want to develop in because I feel like they push me to be my best, to be as creative as I can be.
What does success look like for you, Cutter? I mean, you done did some amazing things, work with some amazing people. One would say that you've already made it.
It's all on how you look at it. I learned a long time ago that I wasn't gonna let fame, money, or status define my success. What success looks like for me is respect amongst my peers in this business. That's musicians, producers, executives, managers. respect, being healthy to where I can continue to build for other people, other artists, other people coming up in this business. That's success for me. I don't need I don't need the big mansion. I don't need the flyest car. Them is extra things. I got them. I got them. That ain't gonna break my day. I can only drive one car. So I decided a long time ago I wasn't gonna let that stuff cloud my character or my integrity on what I felt like success was.
If you can give one jewel to an up and coming producer or engineer, what would it be?
Listen more than you talk. If you're gonna be a producer, you gotta have an ear. If you're gonna be an engineer, you gotta have an ear. But most importantly, listen and build your relationships. Keep your relationships solid.
Cutta, you've been in the game a long time. You started when you was 15. What does the next 5 years look like for you?
Next 5 years, man, I'm looking at I'm wanting to build infrastructure, whether that be here in Oklahoma or abroad. I want to build infrastructure to where, let's just say, for example, here I think we're number 50 in education in the whole U.S. So instead of depending on legislation and the government to come in and do what they're supposed to do to help I'd rather build something for the youth here, because from my perspective, there's not a lot for our culture to be involved in. Either you're playing sports or you're just going to school and the school system's a shot. So I want to build infrastructure and build things for that gives our culture and our youth alternatives to dive into, like music, like creating, like filming, like photography, the arts. I want to build infrastructure that creates more for the arts for our youth to be able to have alternatives, because if we get at this pace, a lot of the youth are just getting lost in the system. And if you're number 50 in the United States, what does that say? That
Yeah,
nobody cares.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. Man, I'm so impressed by just the work you've done. And now that I hear that, you're working on your legacy now. You're working on making OKC something bigger and better for the kids that's coming up behind you. So it's only right that I ask you this. How does Cutta want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as, like, I stayed true to my craft and my profession, and somebody who built something that was bigger than just himself and that the generations to come can benefit from.
Sounds like you got a plan.
Absolutely.
Man, Cutta, it was a pleasure, man, to sit down and talk to the legend himself. And we outside in OKC with it. Thanks for being on the platform, Code Red. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm your host, the Playmaker, and this is Cutta.
Already.
And we out.